Okay, here I am with my dad's camera when I was being a photographer, and here is a girl I photographed at that time. I was doing a lot of portraits of kids. This was a Swedish family. The father was a Swedish consul, and they hired me to photograph their daughter. That was 1977. I kept a copy of the photograph because she had such a haunting face, but when I wrote Number the Stars, and the publisher decided to use that photograph after I showed it to them, I called the parents to get their permission, and they said they'll
The
have to
library
call
will be
her.
closing in 15 minutes.
Sorry, I'm not leaving. They said you'll have to call her. She's all grown up. She's just as lovely as a grown up as she was as a child. And I'm realizing, looking at my watch, that we don't have a lot of time, so I'll go quickly through this. This is the only objection I've ever had to this book. I do have a question in the chapter. Uncle Henrik uses the word Dan. I wonder why you use this word. I realize I'm in the minority, but we do not use curse words in our home and taught our children not to use such language. For this reason, I would not have let my children read this book when they were younger. I'm currently a student to become a teacher, and as I think to the future, I will not use this book in my classroom for the same reason. It's Number the Stars she's talking about. The Giver has evoked a lot of challenges and controversy, but Number the Stars never has, except for this one letter from one future teacher. And this is my reply to her, and we don't have time for you to read it. Sorry. The third paragraph says, in order for them to feel that way, they have to believe in the narrative to understand the passion and anguish of the characters. So it's just an explanation of why you try to make characters come alive on the page and be real, and you can't do it if you fake it. This is Number the Stars. This is very meaningful to me, published in German. It's in many, many other languages, but the German took a while. And it was in time, though, for my German granddaughter. My son had married a German woman, and when he died, his wife and little girl stayed in Germany. So my granddaughter read this book in German in her school. Here she is at a little earlier age. And this, I believe, is Turkish. And I heard just this past year that the book has been removed from the Turkish schools. They have now a very conservative government, and I don't know anything more about the reasons. I was interviewed over the phone by the Istanbul newspaper, and I asked if they would send me a copy of the article, and they said they would, but it would be in Turkish. So I said, in that case, don't bother. Here's my father aging, and I put this in only to explain the origins of the Giver. In his final years, he lived to be 92. When I would visit him, I became aware that he did not remember my sister. We had photographs we looked at together, and he would look puzzled at the second little girl. And each time he asked whatever happened to her, I would have to say to him, she died, Dad. And it made me think about memory and how we use it and how important it is. And it led eventually to the writing of this book. This is a different picture of the man who's on the cover of The Giver. I had photographed him for a magazine and again saved the photographs for many years. Couldn't use this one because of the Band-Aid on his hand and other things that now I could fix in Photoshop, and in darkroom days I couldn't do that. So this is the cover that we ended up with. This is a British edition of The Giver, and here's a little exercise in these next pictures of how things go wrong with book covers. Every kid who's read the book objects to this cover, and with good reason. The illustrator has not read the book carefully. The boy never wears sneakers and dungarees and a t-shirt. He appears to be running in this book, in this cover. If you've read the book, you know he is not running away, and he's on a bicycle. But the writer has no control over that, and of course the objections, the letters of objections come to the writer, and I have to write back and say, it wasn't my fault, it was their fault. This is Hungarian, and I like this cover. They've chosen just to use the sled. This one is very strange. This is Chinese. All right, the first strange thing is the look on the man's face. But the very strange thing is the skier. There is one skier. And I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where there are many people of different nationalities, and I could find somebody to read this book in Chinese, but I've never done that. I'm just making the assumption that it's been mistranslated, and the sled has been translated as skis. That's the only thing I've done. I asked for that ski. I have had kids say, not in response to this cover, because I've not had Chinese kids writing me, but sadly I have kids write and say, was that inappropriate touching that the giver was doing? And that kind of gives me the creeps. Okay, this is a letter that, it's typical, but I love this one. Above all, I never knew before the day I left the library with the giver that reading a book, visualizing a world with words, could ever be so powerful. So to end my lengthy letter, thank you with tons of gratitude. All 13 years of me, thank you. And so does every bit of the years to come. This is also about the giver. You have to have read the book to appreciate this. The stirrings were also incredibly humorous. I thought that was fascinating, the way we told their dreams daily. If I told my dreams daily, I would be mortified daily. I think many boys in my class need to be although some people think I need them, truthfully, I think I'm just this is a girl I photographed for the cover of Gathering Blue. Do you guys know the illustrator? She's sadly now dead, Trina Schardheim. This is her grandson on the left. He's a biracial child. I asked if I could borrow her grandson to pose as the little boy Matt in the book, and could she find me a girl? And she found me this lovely girl, and I used her dog as well. This is the photograph that the publisher chose to use, and then the designer chose to cut her in half and tilt her sideways. This is the boy that I hired to pose for the cover of Messenger, and I asked him to bring a puppy, and he did, because the boy in the book carries a puppy on a long, dangerous journey, carries him in his jacket. The puppy, it really was a young dog, but it was very large. And so we kept stuffing this huge puppy into the boy's jacket. And then I even went back to the manuscript, and every place the puppy appeared, I would add more description to mention what a huge puppy was. But though I like this photograph, I realized it would make people laugh, and that the book isn't funny. So I instead used this one. The boy was 14. He told me when he came to be photographed, he said, "I'll shave if you want me to, but I'm trying to grow a mustache." So I said, "Not a problem," and I shaved him in Photoshop. And that's the photograph that they used, and superimposed the trees on it. This is my mother, the little girl on the right. Oh, I'm sorry, we're running out of time, so quickly, I just had that in there showing how generations of my family, this is me at 3, me and my sister, 3 and 6.
Well, you can keep going, you don't have to.
This is one of my daughters and her little boy. He was 9 months old there, looking at a book, and this is the same child when he was probably 3. This is a step-granddaughter. This is my own granddaughter, 10. By now she's reading English. She started speaking both languages simultaneously, but it took her longer to read English than German, because German is completely phonetic. English was tough for her when she was young. Okay, this is the one I didn't tell people about earlier. This is more, although it's published as a young adult book, it has an interesting history, and it's not for young kids. My grandmother was one of 4 sisters. Bad reproduction, but here they are. My grandmother is the one on the lower right. Helen was her name. My sister was named for her. On the upper right, all 4 of these sisters grew up, went to college, graduated from college, turn of the early 1900s. 3 of them married, a banker, a doctor, and a lawyer. But Mary, the one on the upper right, went to New York and studied to be a photographer. And this is a photograph of her in 1916. She's wearing trousers, and you can't really see, but she's smoking a cigarette. Her parents must have been wringing their hands over Mary. I find her the most interesting of the 4 sisters. But at any rate, she was still alive when I went to graduate school, studied photography, and she was very interested in my doing that because she'd been a photographer. And when she died,